Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yutes, Daf 19, Masechta Moed Katan. Friends, it's snowing here in Eretz Yisrael. It's snowing in Yerushalayim. So the people, they're getting noisy because they're getting very excited. But I'm a grouchy fellow. And when the people get excited, friends, we gotta do Babylon Talmud over here. Hopefully they won't be too excited, but they're already too excited. You see, the problem is when they're too excited, it's distracting for me. Other people getting excited is distracting for me, you know what I mean? Friends, let's move on. Oh gosh, these people are getting very excited. Let me see what excited people look like. 1 second. Alright, there's a group of young fellows out there throwing snow at each other. Alright, supposedly that's a fun thing to do. Friends, I'm going to have fun by learning Babylon Talmud. Alright, well, at least I hope I'll have fun. Friends, today's daf we talk about writing Sefer Torah, Tefillin, Mezuzos, and Chol Moed, and then we get, they're yelling. Gosh, you guys are going to have a hard time with me today. I'm going to be very difficult today. They're screeching. Alright, you're going to get a play-by-play, not just the Gemara, but also these young fellows. Anyways, So and then we talk about a very interesting thing about if you have somebody who's sitting shiva, right? Somebody passed away, so people are mourning, and then the Chol Moed comes, right? Then it's Yom Tov. So what are the implications for the shiva? What if it's shloshim? So we're gonna start that sugya, which is it's practical, right? It happens. The one thing that I can rely upon around here usually in these situations is my neighbor. She often, right, we've experienced my neighbor together on Babylon Talmud. She'll go out and she'll scream and yell, and that'll scare most people away. These kids, I think she'll be able to scare away because they're just a bunch of whippersnappers, so she shouldn't have an issue blowing them away. But the question is if she's in a fiery mood tonight. Maybe she's going to allow the people to have fun, but again, people having fun makes it difficult for us. Friends, let's move on. Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. It says the Mishnah, in Kozvin Shitrei Chov B'Moed. What do you want me to tell you? That you can't write documents of obligations on the festival. So meaning, like on Chol Moed. So meaning, if Ruvain owes Shimon, right, or if Ruvain is going to borrow $1,000 from Shimon, so it says Ein Kosvin Shitrei Chov, right? So they can't write a document to say that Reuven now owes Shimon $1,000. Vim Eino Mamino, but if Shimon doesn't trust that Reuven's going to pay him back to the extent that doesn't feel comfortable lending Reuven that money, O She'ein Lo Mayochal, or if the scribe who they would hire to write the document doesn't have any food to eat and can really use the income, Harizi Yichtov. So in that case, you would be able to write a document. In Kozvin Svarim Tefillin Mezuzos B'Moed, we don't write Sefer Torah, Tefillin, Mezuzos on Chol Moed. Ve'ein Magin Os Achas Afilu B'Sefer Ezra, and we don't correct even one letter, even from the scroll of Ezra. Apparently there was a scroll from Ezra that was sort of like the definitive text of the Torah that they would use when writing other Sefer Torah. And so we don't fix any letters, even if it's like that definitive text that we need to preserve. We wouldn't write any letters on. Chol Moed Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, Kosev Adam Tefillin u'Mezuzos le'atzmo, that a fellow would be allowed to write Tefillin, Mezuzos for himself. V'tov al yirecho tcheles l'tzitziso, he can spin on his thigh tcheles, essentially threads, for his tzitzis, but not like the Gemara is going to explain different ways to do that, I guess. It says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, the Rabbis taught, Kosev Adam Tefillin u'Mezuzos le'atzmo. Alright, a fellow can write Tefillin, Mezuzos for himself, V'tova Yirecho Tcheles L'tzitziso, and he can spin on his thigh strings for, the blue strings for his tzitzis, V'la'acherim, and for other people, B'tova. And if he's doing it for other people, he could do it for them as a favor. Divrei Meir, that's Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, Mayrim u'mocher es shelo. Rabbi Yehuda says that actually it could be a little sneaky, it could be a little tricky. What he could do is, he could sell his v'choz v'chosiv la'atzmo and then write it again for himself. So Kilu, what he could do is he could write tefillin and mezuzahs for himself, wink wink, and then sell them to other people, and then write it again for himself, wink wink, and sell it again to other people. And he could be tricky like that. He can always claim to be making it for himself, but push comes to shove, the maaseh, he's selling it to others. Rabbi Yossi Omer says, Rabbi Yossi Kosiv Mocha Kedarko K'dei Panasaso, says Rabbi Yossi, look, a fellow can write and sell tefillin mezuzahs on Chol Moed and make a living, and that's fine. Orile Rav Chananel, Rav taught to Rav Chananel. Rav Chananel, he ruled for Rav Chananel. Ve'amrila Rav Bar Bachana Rav Chananel. Some Taka say is Rav Bar Bachana to Rav Chananel. Halacha Kosiv Mocha Kedarko K'dei Panasaso, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, that you can write and sell normally. To make a living, and that would be acceptable. All right. And he could take spin on his thigh. Tcheles. No, what's this? A fellow can spin on his thigh. Essentially, tcheles strings, these woolen blue strings for tzitzis avalo be'evin. But you can't use a stone. I guess they would somehow hang a string by a stone, and that would help. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, that's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. So you can do it on your thigh, not with a stone. Alright, what am I going to tell you? You can use a stone. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo. Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Rabbi Eliezer, meaning Rabbi Yehuda says that the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer is be'even avalo be'pelach. You can use says that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, Rabbi Yehuda says that Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that you're allowed to suspend the string by a stone, but not by a spindle. The Chacham say no, use a stone, use a spindle, whatever you're going to enjoy the most. Amar of Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, whatever, either one's fine. Amar of Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, says Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, v'chein, Amar B'chia Barabba, Amar Yochanan, says Rabbi B'chia Barabba in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha b'mepelach. The halacha is that you can, make this tzitzis string, whether with a stone, whether with a spindle. What do you want me to tell you? And additionally, you can write Sefer Torah, mezuzah, in sort of the normal fashion and sell it to make a living, and that would be acceptable, like Rabbi Yossi. So, all right, there you have it, friends. Says the Mishnah, Hakovres Meso Shloshiyom Kodim L'Regel. Okay, friends. So now we are getting into sugyas of mourning and what happens when Shiva or Shloshim interferes. I don't know if interferes is the right word, but sort of gets interrupted maybe by the Shalosh Regalim. So interestingly, the discussion in the Mishnah seems to be making a distinction between 3 days prior to the festival and less than that. Now, I think la'alacha, in practice, we don't make that distinction. I think in practice, if there's a festival, let's say somebody passes away and then boom, it's Pesach, let's say. So Shiva's over, even if it was just right before it. So we're gonna see, but for now, the assumption in the Mishnah and the Gemara is that there are, it's not necessarily so clear cut. There could be situations where you actually have to make up some of the Shiva after Pesach. So whatever it is, I just want to point out that what we do in practice, if people know the halachis of Avelus and what happens in this case, and you're saying, what? That's not true. In practice, we don't paskin like what we're about to read, but so I just want to point that out so nobody should be confused, like, hey, this doesn't make sense. We're assuming for now that there are sort of different stages that, if you're before a certain stage, then there would still be Shiva even after the festival. So anyways, just want to mention that. Now, says the Mishnah, okay, so if you have a fellow who, let's say a parent died, 3 days, so it's already been 3 days since the parent passed away, and then the festival begins, right? Let's say it's Pesach, fine. So batle menu gzera shiva. So shiva's done. Kilu, once already there's been 3 days of shiva. If it now, let's say Pesach comes, so shiva's over. You already did 3 days. Pesach comes, it's enough. Shiva's done. Shmone. And if let's say Pesach, I'll just use Pesach for an example. So if Pesach comes after, once it's already day 8, so i.e. you're already in Shloshim, because basically for the first 30 days once the fellow passes away, so within those 30 days, the first 7 days are Shiva, and then the rest of the 30 days are Shloshim, right? So if let's say Pesach falls out, once already it's day 8 since the fellow's relative passed away, so then Batlu Emenu Gzera Shloshim, so now Shloshim is over, right? So whereas, so if it's been 3 days, so then Shiva is over, the halachos of Shiva are over, but Shloshim is still relevant, and after the festival, Shloshim will continue, as Rashi points out, on the festival, right? Because what's Shloshim? Shloshim, you're not allowed to get a haircut, right? And therefore, on the festival, you're not allowed to get a haircut either. So it's Keilu, Shiva is over, but Shloshim is going to remain, and Shloshim is going to remain for the duration of the 30 days since the fellow passed away. Now, when it comes, however, to Shiva, so that was Shiva, right? But if it's Shloshim, if the Shloshim already began, right? So if it's already been like day 8, and then the festival comes, so you're allowed to get a haircut before the festival, and basically that is over. Okay, fine. So now, Mipnei Sha'amru, because they said Shabbos Ola Ve'ena Mafsekes, that Shabbos, right? So let's say a fellow passes away on a Thursday, or let's say even a Friday. Okay, a fellow passes away on a Friday, any day during the week. But let's just say, for example, a Friday. So now it becomes Shabbos. So Shabbos counts as part of like the 7 days, right? It's not like you can't count it as part of the 7 days. It counts as part of the 7 days. However, Ve'ena. So it counts as one of the 7 days, and of course on Shabbos you're not going to be mourning on Shabbos, right? You're not going to do any minhag avelus on Shabbos. However, ve'ena mafsekes, it doesn't stop the shiva, right? So comes Shabbos, you're not going to be noig, you're not going to do the mourning stuff because it's Shabbos, but it doesn't sort of stop the shiva, right? Shiva doesn't end when Shabbos comes. So even though you're not practicing mourning on Shabbos, but it does nonetheless count as one of the 7 days of Shiva. Now, regalim, when it comes to the shalosh regalim, so mafsikin, so they actually do stop the Shiva, right? So for example, if the fellow's relative passed away 3 days before the festival begins, before Pesach, in our example. So when Pesach comes, Shiva is over. Mafsikin, right? It ends the Shiva. Ve'enon olin, and they don't count, meaning if it was less than 3 days, so let's say, so in our example, I was saying Friday, let's say, Friday and Shabbos, but let's say, let's say the fellow's relative passed away the day before, 1 day before Pesach begins. So then, in that case, he would have to, right, it's Einon Olin, in that case, Pesach would not end the Shiva, right, because it's been less than 3 days. He would have to make up the remaining days after Pesach, and Pesach doesn't count for part of the Shiva, right? So whereas Shabbos counts as one of the 7 days, even though you're not mourning on it, if a relative passed away less than 3 days before a festival, so then you would interrupt the Shiva for the festival, but you would continue afterwards, and the days of the festival would not count. Okay, fine. Rabbi Eliezer Omer says, Rabbi Eliezer Mishachar Beis Hamikdash, once the temple was destroyed, Atzeres Kishabbos, so then we treat Shavuos like Shabbos, and that you would not practice mourning on Shavuos, but it nonetheless does count as one of the 7 days, and it does not, interrupt, or it doesn't end the Shiva. That that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have the halachos of the Shalosh Regalim. That, if somebody passed away 3 days before Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, so then, Shiva would be over, if it was 3 days already. The Chacham say, lo k'divrei zeh v'lo k'divrei zeh. It's actually in practice like neither Rabbi Eliezer nor like Rabbi Gamliel. Rather, el atzeres k'regalim, Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim k'Shabbos. Rather, Shavuos is like the other Shalosh Regalim, that if it's been 3 days, then, Shiva would be over. And Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are like Shabbos, that you don't practice mourning on them, but they don't interrupt the Shiva. You just, you pick it up where you left off afterwards, but they count as like one of the days, even though you're not mourning on them. Says the Gemara, Amar Rab, says Rab, Gzeiras Batlu Yomim Lo Batlu. That says Rab that the enactments of Shloshim are over when the festival comes, but the days of Shloshim are not over. We're going to have to explain what this means in a second. However, says Rab that Gezeiras Badlu, that the decrees of, the practices of Shloshim, when the festival comes, the practices of Shloshim are over. But Yomim Lo Badlu, the days of Shloshim are not over. We're going to have to explain what that means. And similarly, Rav Huna says, Gezeras Batlu, Yom Lo Batlu, that the enactments, the decrees, the halachis of Shloshim, the rules of Shloshim, the laws of Shloshim, what do you want me to tell you? They are over when the festival comes, but the days don't end. Rav Sheshes Samar, Afilu Yom Nami Batlu. Rav Sheshes says, no, also the days are over. Okay, fine. My time Yom Lo Batlu, what does it mean that the days are not over? So this is what it means. Right, according to Rav at least. That if he didn't shave before the festival, then he's not allowed to shave after the festival. Meaning, like I explained a few minutes ago, that, for example, we said that if it's already been 3 days since the relative passed away, so then Shiva is over, but Shloshim, we said, remains until for the duration of the 30 days. And I said because, well, technically speaking, you're not allowed to get a haircut on Chol Moed anyways, right? So it's basically like Shiva is over, and now you just go into the Shloshim kind of thing, right? You're not in the intense days of mourning. You could bathe or whatever, but you still can't get a haircut, and you can't get a haircut on Chol Moed anyways, right? So basically, you're no longer in Shiva, because it's been 3 days, and now it's a festival, but you're basically now in Shloshim for the duration of the 30-day period until 30 days from when the relative passed away. However, if it's already been day 8, and it's already Shloshim, and then the festival comes, so now you are allowed, before the festival now, to get a haircut. And that basically ends the Shloshim. Normally during Shloshim you would not get a haircut. Now because a festival, sort of falls out in the middle of the Shloshim, so the Shloshim ends, you can get your haircut before the festival, and it's over at that point. Now the question is, what if he didn't get a haircut? If he didn't get a haircut before the festival, and he's not allowed to get a haircut on the festival, so then do we treat it as if then Shloshim never really ended, and therefore you should continue practicing Shloshim, observing Shloshim until the end of 30 days. So that's what Rav and Rav Huna say. Right? Rav and Rav Huna say, look, Gezeres Batlu, that if you get a haircut, so then Shloshim is over. But Yom Lo Batlu, the days remain, meaning if you don't get a haircut before Chol Moed, before Rosh Hashanah, before the festival, so then the Shloshim continues. Whereas Rav Sheshes says no, regardless of whether or not you get a haircut before the festival, comes the festival, Shloshim is over. So, again, right, so we said, She'im lo gilach erev haregel asu legaleach achar haregel. That if he didn't get a haircut before the festival, then he missed his chance. He's not allowed to get a haircut after the festival either until Shloshim is over. Ve'atanya, and we have a brisa that sort of expresses this machlokas between Rav Huna and Rav on the one hand, and Rav Sheshes on the other. Ve'atanya, we learn in a brisa, hakobres meso shlosha yom kodem l'regel. A fellow buries a relative 3 days before the festival. Betela Eimenu Gezeres Shiva. So now Shiva is over. Shmona Yom Kodem L'Regel. If the relative passes away 8 days before the festival, well, now Shloshim is over because the festival has come. And he can get a haircut before the festival. But what if he didn't get a haircut before the festival? Then he's not allowed to get a festival, and he's not allowed to get a haircut anymore after the festival. He lost his chance, and Shloshim continues, like Rav and Rav Huna. Abba Shaul Omer, says Abba Shaul, mutar legaleach achar regel, that no, regardless of whether or not he gets a haircut before the festival, he would be allowed to get a haircut after the festival, even if 30 days are not up. Shekshim shemitzvah shloshim mevateles shiva gzer shiva, that just like what mitzvahs shloshim mevateles gzer shiva, that just like if 3 days had already passed before the festival, so then when the festival comes, Shiva is over. Kach mitzvahs Shiva mivateles gzeras shloshim. So also once 7 days have passed, so then the festival comes, so Shloshim is over, regardless of if you actually got a haircut before the festival or not. Frek the Gemara, maybe you already asked thinking this question. Shiva ve'anan shmona tanan. Why did we just now say that once 7 days have passed since the relative passed away, then when the festival comes, it interrupts Shloshim? I thought we said it has to be day 8. So Kasavra Abba Shaul Miktsas Hayom Kikulov Yom Shvi Ololo L'chan L'chan, as we learned the other day, that Abba Shaul's opinion is that Miktsas Hayom Kikulo, that part of the day counts already like the entire day, and therefore once already day 7 begins, it's as if the Shiva is over and now you're on the 8th day, and therefore once already 7 days have passed according to Abba Shaul, Shloshim is over regardless of if you got a haircut or not. Amr of Chizda, said of Chizda, Amr Avino Bashila, halacha Abba Shaul, that the halacha is like Abba Shaul, that Miktsas Hayom Kikulo, that part of a day can count as a whole day. Umodim Chacham Abba Shaul, and even the Chachamim who say that no, you need 7 full days, they agree with Abba Shaul. As we learned the other day, when day 8 falls out on Shabbos, that is the Erev HaRegel, right? So if, let's say, Pesach begins on Sunday, so then if somebody's relative passed away on the previous Shabbos, and that means that the next Shabbos is day 8, and then Pesach begins on Sunday. So the question is, what about on Friday, which is day 7? Can you get a haircut? So Shemutu L'Galech B'Erev Shabbos, even the Chacham would say that yes, even in general you have to wait 7 full days. However, if day 7 is a Friday, followed by Shabbos, which is day 8, and then the festival begins on Sunday, so then you would be able to get a haircut on Friday, even though it's day 7. In that case, the rabbis would admit to Abba Shaul that you can consider it like the 7 days have passed, once part of the day has passed, because we'll say Miktsas Hayom Kikulo, and you can get a haircut on that Friday. Friends, just an update on the young people outside. They're still having a good time, and let's go weiter. This is exciting, even more exciting than throwing snow at people. So, like, who does the following statement of Rav Amram in the name of Rav go like? Now that is what I want to know. Ovel, okay. That when you have somebody who's mourning, once already the people who are consoling him have left him, he is allowed to jump in the shower. That is like Abba Shaul, who says that Miktsas Yom Kikulo, that Akilu, if on day 7, the people, right, day 7, they daven Shacharis, and then, the people leave, so you can jump in the shower already, even though day 7 is not yet ended. That is like Abba Shaul, who says Miktsas Yom Kikulo. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, Halacha Abba Shaul, B'Yom Shiva. Says Abaye that the halacha is not like the Chachamim, rather it's like Abba Shaul on day 7, that Miktsas Hayom Kikulo. Umodim chacham la'abashol b'yom shloshim. And on day 30, even the rabbis agree with Abba Shaul that when it comes to day 30, part of the day is like the whole day, and you can already shave it in the morning of day 30. Because we say part of the day is like a whole day. Rava Amar says, Rava, halacha ka Abba Shaul, that the halacha is like Abba Shaul b'yom shloshim, when on day 30. That kilu, on day 30, there's a machlokus between Abba Shaul and the Chachamim. Do you have to wait the entire day or part of the day? Says Rava, the halacha is like Abba Shaul on day 30, that part of the day is enough. Ve'ein halacha ka Abba Shaul b'yom shiva. But the halacha is not like Abba Shaul on day 7. Rather, it's like the Chachamim that you have to wait for the entire day 7. V'nardoi Amrei say the Nardeans, halacha ka Abba Shaul, that the halacha is like Abba Shaul, bazo uvazo, both by day 7 and by day 30. That mixes ayom kikulo. To Amr Shmuel, halacha k'div amekel be'ovel, that Shmuel says that the halacha is like the lenient opinion when, a mosquito. Oh gosh, that's not good. Oh no. What, when it snows, the mosquitoes come out? Oh, that's no good. That's no good. Akoponim, the Nardaeans say that the halacha is like Abba Shaul, both by day 7 and by day 30, that mixes Yom Kikulo, because the halacha is always like the lenient opinion when it comes to mourning, right? Because right, Shmuel says that the halacha is always like the lenient opinion when it comes to mourning, and therefore both on day 7 and on day 30, you can part of the day is enough, and on day 7 Shiva is over, and on day 30 Shloshim is over. What am I going to do about this mosquito? That's no good. Oh yeah, that's no good. Let's go weiter. Shloshim Yom Minolan. How do I know that there's like 30 days is like a thing? Yolif Pera Minozir, because we learn out Pera. It says Pera, to grow out, both by a Nazir and by a mourner. Ksivacha, it says by mourners. Roshechem Atifro, that God says to the children of Aaron after Nadav and Avihu pass away, and it was during the time of the Chanukas Mizbeach, and right, or the Miluim, and they were getting ready for the Mishkan. So God says, do not grow out your hair, rather, get haircuts, meaning, but implying that the default would be that they would have to grow out their hair because they were mourners. Uchsiv asam gadol pera sarosh, when it says by a Nazir, a fellow who grows out his hair, so it says pera both by mourners and by Nazir. Malahalan shloshim, afkan shloshim, so just like by Nazir, the default Nazirite period is for 30 days. So here also, by mourning, we grow out our hair for 30 days. How do I know that the default of a Nazir is 30 days? Amr of Masna, Stam Nazir Shloshim Yom, because says Rav Masna that the default Nazir period is 30 days. My time Hakam Amr Kra, the pasuk says, Kadosh Yiyeh B'Gematria Tzlosin Habu, that he will be holy. Yiyeh in its numerical value is 30, so therefore the default status of the default sort of period of time for a Nazir is 30 days. Amr Rafuna B'Rav Yeshua, says Rafuna B'Rav Yeshua, Hakol Modim K'Shachol Shlishi Shalot Lios Ever Regel. Everyone agrees that if the third day of mourning is the day before a festival begins, Sha'asur B'Rechitza Erev, that he's not allowed to bathe until the evening. Right? So Kilu comes the festival, Shiva is over. However, until the festival begins, Shiva continues. Right? We don't say like Abba Shaul, the Mixas Yom Kikulo, that's by day 7, not by day 3 when there's a festival. Amr of Nehemiah, Breder of Yeshua, says of Nehemiah, Breder of Yeshua, Ashku Chasinu Rav Papi, Rav Papa, that I found Rav Papi and Rav Papa, the Yazve V'Kami, that they were saying, Halacha Krafuna Breder of Yeshua, that the halacha is like Rafuna Breder of Yeshua, that you have to wait till the end of the third day. Ikadamar, to those who say, Amr of Nehemiah, Breder of Yosef, Ashku Chasinu Rav Papa, Rav Papi, Rav Papa, Rafuna Breder of Yeshua, that says of Nehemiah, Breder of Yosef, that he found Rav Papi and Rav Papa and Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua, the Asaf V'Kamri, that they were saying, Akol Modim, that everybody agrees, Shem Chol Shlishi Shlolios Erev Regel, that if day 3 of the morning falls out on the day before the festival begins, Shasu B'Rechitza Erev, that he's not allowed to bathe until the evening. He has to wait the entire 3 days. Ba'amine Abaye Mei, says Rava. What do you guys think? Should we change it to Rabba? Fine. Ba'amine Abaye Me Rabba. So Abaye asks Rabba, Kavro B'Regel, Regel Ololo Leminyan Shloshim o ein regel ololo leminyan shloshim. So we want to know that in a situation where somebody passes away on the festival, right? So in that case, where we've been talking about if he passes away before the festival, what about on the festival? So Abai wants to know, right? Abai asked Rabba, Kavro biregel, if he had to bury a relative on the festival, regel ololo leminyan shloshim, o ein regel ololo leminyan shloshim, does the festival, can it count towards the 30 days? Right? Let's say he passed away on the 3rd day of the festival. So there are 4 remaining days in the festival. So when the festival is over, is it as though 4 days of the shloshim have already passed, or does shloshim begin after the festival? Now, Abai clarifies, Linyan Shiva lo kamibayali. I'm not asking about Shiva, Dilo nahaga mitzvah Shiva beregel. Because the mitzvah, right, Shiva doesn't apply during the festival, right? On Shiva, you're not allowed to bathe and things like that, where, that doesn't apply on the festival. On the festival, you're allowed to bathe, right? So therefore, Shiva only begins after the festival, and therefore, certainly the days of the festival will not count for Shiva, and Shiva begins after the festival, again, la halacha, we don't necessarily do this, but I don't know what we do la halacha in this case, but I assume that there's no Shiva. I'm not sure. I don't know, but certainly the festival will not count towards Shiva in this case because you're not actually practicing Shiva on the festival. It'll start after the festival, and you'll have Shiva then. Kikami boyali, what I want to know, says Abai, is leminyan shloshim. But what about for shloshim? Dikanahaga mitzvah shloshim beregel. Because after all, you are practicing the halachas of shloshim during the regel. You're not getting a haircut. So maybe the festival can count towards the 30 days. Maybe you don't have to start afterwards. So what's halacha? Amale eino ola. So Rabbi says it doesn't count. It doesn't count as part of the shloshim. Eisvei. But then Abai says, I don't understand. We have a brisa that says, "Akover meso shnei yom kodem haregel." Okay, that if a fellow buries a relative 2 days before the festival, monech chamisha yomim achar regel. So then he's got to count 5 days after the festival. So meaning, if he's 2 days into Shiva and then the festival comes, so it hasn't been 3 days yet. So he takes a break from the Shiva for the festival, but then he's got to fill in. He's got to make up the remaining 5 after the festival. Other people do is work for him, and his servants and maidservants, they can work sort of quietly in the house, but not sort of loudly and publicly. And in those 5 days after the festival, the community isn't necessarily busy consoling him, because they were consoling him during the festival, right? So even though during the festival he's not actually technically sitting Shiva, but people, somebody did just pass away 2 days ago, so even though he's not technically sitting Shiva, people are still sort of supporting him and giving him comfort over the festival. So therefore, after the festival, they do not need to continue doing that. But Shiva does technically still continue for 5 days after the festival, until the end of Shiva, because he's got to make up the remaining days. Klalo Shaldavar, the rule is, Koshu Mishum Avel Regel Mafsiko, that the Avelus, the festival interrupts. V'choshu Mishum Iskei Rabim Ein Regel Mafsiko. But things that are related to sort of the public helping him out and supporting him, so that they will continue to do during the festival. But after the festival, he will have to make up the Shiva days that got interrupted during the festival. Kavro Shlosha Yom B'sof HaRegel. So now what happens if he passes away with 3 days left in the middle of the festival? In the middle of the festival. So he passes away in the middle of the festival. So Mona Shiva, Achar Regel. So he's got to sit Shiva after the festival. He waits till after the festival and then he sits Shiva. And remember, the relative passed away with 3 days left of the festival. So for the first 3 days of Shiva, essentially, for the first 3 days since the relative passed away, which are during the festival, but still, the public is going to be consoling him, right? Somebody just passed away. It's on a festival, but still people are going to be comforting him. So therefore, I'm going to read that again. Arba Yom Marishonim. So the first 4 days of Shiva that begin after the festival, Rab Misaskim Bo. So people are still going to be consoling him. They already consoled him for 3 days during the festival, and now for another 4 days after the festival. Shlosha Yom Machronim Ein Rab Misaskim Bo. But for the last 3 days of Shiva, right, meaning the relative passed away with 3 days left during the festival, and then there's another Shiva. The first 4 days of Shiva kind of complete the 7 days that the community is supporting him, and for the remaining 3 days of Shiva, Kilu the halachos of Shiva apply, but the community is not necessarily supporting him on the same level because they already supported him for a week. Because they already started helping out during the festival. V'regel ola lo, and the festival itself counts towards the shloshim ma'alav aseifa lo aresha. And we want to say that it's talking about the second part of the brisa of when the relative passed away on the festival. And we're saying that even though Shiva begins after the festival, still those 3 days of the festival count towards the shloshim. To which we say, no, not necessarily. You can argue that those 3 days do not count towards the shloshim. And when it says that they do count towards the shloshim, it's talking about the resha, the first part of the brisa, that said that if somebody passes away less than 3 days before the festival, let's say 2 days before the festival, so then the festival interrupts the Shiva, and you have to continue making up the remaining 5 days after the festival. But nonetheless, we're saying that the days of the festival count towards the shloshim, right? But we're not necessarily saying that would be the case if somebody passed away during the festival. So, okay, we don't have a proof. Eizve. But then Abaye asks, Regel ole lo leminyan shloshim. We have a brisa that says that the festival counts for the 30 days. Ketzad, in what case? Kavro b'tchila saregel. If he buried his relative at the beginning of the festival, kilu on the festival, on day 1 of the festival, mona shiva achar regel, so then he needs to count 7 days after the festival, right? Because essentially the relative passed away during the festival. So he's not going to start shiva during the festival. He waits till after the festival and then sits shiva. Other people do his work, and his servants can be working quietly in the house. But nobody's going to have to. The community will not sort of be obligated to comfort him anymore because they already did for the 7 days of the festival. And here in the brisa, it's saying, and in this case, the festival would count towards the shloshim. So there we have it. That when somebody passes away in the middle of a festival, so Shiva begins after the festival, but those days of the festival count towards the shloshim. Friends, that was Daf Yud Tes of Masechta Moed Katan. I think it was pretty interesting daf. The first part talked about writing Sifrei Torah, Tefillin, Mezuzahs. We saw 3 opinions. We saw the opinion of Reb Meir, who says that you can write Sifrei Torah, that you can write Tefillin and Mezuzahs for yourself, and you can give them away as a gift to other people on Chol Moed if you want. Reb Yehuda says that you can write them for yourself, but then you can be sneaky and then say, oh, I wrote it for myself, but I'm actually going to sell it. And then write another one for yourself and sell that too. Reb Yossi says that no, you can actually write, Tefillin and Mezuzahs on Chol Moed, and you can sell them normally. That would be okay, according to Reb Yehuda, according to Reb Yossi. We also saw about how to make tzitzis strings on Chol Moed. We saw initially the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who says that you can do it with on your thigh, but you can't use a stone. The Chacham say you can even use a stone. Then it says Rabbi Yehuda that no, actually the Machlokas is Rabbi Eliezer says that you can even use a stone, but not a spindle. Chacham say you can even use a spindle. All right, what do you want me to tell you? Then we got into some interesting distinctions between when a festival sort of coincides with Shiva. We said that there's a distinction between if it's been 3 days or not. If it's already been 3 days, so then comes the festival and Shiva is over, and you sort of, Shiva is over, but Shloshim will continue until the end of 30 days. If it has not yet been 3 days, so then Shiva interrupts the festival interrupts the Shiva. So let's say it was 2 days. So you already did 2 days of Shiva, but you're going to have to make up the remaining 5 days of Shiva after the festival. And if Shloshim already began, so let's say it was like day 8, let's say, before the festival began, so then the festival interrupts the Shiva. The festival interrupts the Shloshim, and the Shloshim is over. We saw machlokas between Rav and Rav Huna on the one hand, who say that in order for the festival to interrupt the Shloshim, so he would have to get chaparine and take advantage of and get a haircut before the festival. Whereas Rav Shesha says regardless of if he gets a haircut before the festival interrupts the Shloshim. Okay, and at the end we wanted to know that in a situation where somebody passes away on the festival, so if somebody passed away on the festival, so then Shiva only begins after the festival. But the question is, does the festival count towards Shloshim? And the answer is yes. Friends, that was Daf Yutes of Masechta Moed Katan. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.